Good afternoon, this is Jeff with Sewer Tech Northwest. We are at property address here, 7105 Southeast 22nd Avenue. Located inside the main house, down the basement. We've got a nice clean out right here on the floor. It's right next to the vacuum flow system and where the sump pump is at. Got a 3-inch ABS clean out on the floor here. We're going to check the overall condition and serviceability of the sanitary sewer line here. Some cobwebs off the camera lens. And we're going to zero out here right at the base of the access. And we'll take a second look. You got a little bit of settling here right as we drop in. We'll take a better look at that on the way out when the line's drained. Now what I'm not seeing there is any buildup. And we're going to run this out here until we hit the Y connection where this line and the ADU line come together. You're able to scope all the way to the main from the ADU. So we'll just take this one out to where the two come together. And all the stringy stuff you've seen thus far in the line here, that right there, all cobwebs. Another spot we're going to take a look at as we come out. And shortly after this, there's the Y connection. Yep, there's the 3034. So we're seeing the same stuff we saw as we were going to the ADU. So we're going to let the line drain out here for a moment. Alright, I just went and did a locate there. I already had a good idea where this thing went from the first go through the ADU, but where we're sitting right now at the transition joint is just before the sidewalk, straight out from the doorway. So where the two lines come together here, approximately about 5-6 feet back from the street curb. I'm sorry, not the street curb, but the sidewalk edge. And that's where where the yard meets the sidewalk, that edge. So you've got a joint here that you've got some separation at the joint. What's always hard to tell in these circumstances if the joint is actually compromised or open to the ground. You have a coupler here between these two pieces of pipe that joins them together. You've got a little bit of discoloration there at the joint, which, theoretically it could be, could be dirt. It could also easily, whenever you get a little bit of a gap between pipe joints like this, anything that comes down line can kind of get hung up in that little spot there, where otherwise you wouldn't have that. And so you can see on the sidewall here, previous to that joint, how you get a little, bit of brown substance there up on the sidewalls, just from general usage. That's what's hard to tell about some of these things. What we don't have coming through here are roots. You have very, very minimal, almost no settling to speak of here. This is one of those that, without earthworms crawling around, root hairs poking through, what I'm seeing there on the sidewalls of the pipe and everything, it's brown substance, but it can also be a thin layer of grease. What you have down there on the sidewalls looks very reminiscent of grease buildup. So it's a hard one. It's one that I could call a possibly compromised joint. This is nothing that's affecting flow or functionality as it sits. I will notate it on the report. As it sits right now, though, I don't feel comfortable jumping straight to the conclusion of just recommending a repair on that. So you can put pipe joints together and affix them in place in kind of a separated fashion. So that's what's tricky about that one, is there's just not enough there, in my opinion, to jump to the conclusion that the joint is opened up to the ground. You've got a little discoloration, and that's about it. What I'm looking for are signs that are fairly bonehead obvious, that show you it's very clearly open to the ground. Water droplets dripping through from the ground, root hairs, earthworms are a very common thing when you have open joints, that kind of stuff crawling around. I'm just not seeing enough of it there to jump straight to that, in my opinion. So a couple joints that are like that in the line. You've got another one right here. Again, there's a little bit of the edge of the pipe exposed, and it doesn't take very much to cause stuff to kind of hang up on those edges over time. And because of what goes down sewer lines, grease, human waste, things like that, that are often very similar to the color of dirt, that's why I look for secondary signs that make it very obvious and clear that a joint is open. And consider, and one of the things I get concerned about when you have joints that are compromised, if they allow groundwater and dirt to seep through them, it can lead to hydro erosion. And so one of the things I look for is very clear, obvious settling. You have teeny tiny bits of standing water right here. It's so minor though. It's, you know, a pipe joint can shift a little bit when it gets buried sometimes, or just get it fixed in place that way. There's just not enough showing on some of these here to jump straight to that conclusion. That's my 2 cents on it, especially on a line that otherwise flows nicely, is clean, no buildup. So I will mention them on the report. It's one of those things that ideally to catch some of these joints, especially when a joint is not gaping wide open to the ground or anything like that, it's very subtle. Sometimes the only way to catch any of these things, if they are indeed open, is to, you know, ideally sculpt a line during like the rainy season, for instance. Here's another one here. A little bit of a pipe edge showing, but again, you could have debris coming down line that just kind of, you know, ran across that, and you'll get a little deposit there. So you do have a belly here at 7 feet, or that dissipates off at 7 feet, I should say. This spot here, you're holding around an inch of standing water. You know, when I look into the clean out here, the clean out is clean. There's no buildup in it. There's no buildup in the belly either. What I was going to check on here, like there's a little scrap of like toilet paper right there, but that's not what I refer to as buildup. Buildup is when you start getting thick stuff collecting on the sidewalls and the top of the pipe. That indicates recurring flow problems. So when I'm looking at one of these things and whether or not I want to recommend a fix on it, I mean, one of the first and foremost things I at least want to be able to do is recommend cleaning. There's not even enough gunk in the line here to recommend you clean it. Now, just did a toilet flush there in the downstairs basement. That water ripped through there with good velocity. This looks like a clump of hair got caught on this, a little bit of this joint here. All right, just did 2 different toilet flushes there. The downstairs went shooting through there with good velocity. The upstairs toilet is obviously dropping an entire story, so it moves through there with some oomph as well. So you have a belly there. Again, you've got a few joints throughout the line that show a little bit of gapping between them. None of them rise to the level to where I can tell you that the little bit of substance out them is even related to dirt, for instance, like the joint would be open to the ground. So this belly here, it runs from about where the clean out is at out to about 7 feet. The only thing in that belly at all right now is a little clump of human hair. There's no buildup, no toilet paper buildup, no blockage evidence, nothing like that. So in my opinion, I mean, based on the occupancy that has currently been here, the living habits, looks like these folks have lived here just fine without having any blockages. There's just no signs or evidence of it. So in my opinion, the belly there is not significant enough, nor is it displaying enough evidence of past flow issues or recurring flow issues to justify tearing up the floor. That's my 2 cents on it. Anyhow, we have adequate flow of the main lateral connection. All the pipe here, as far as I can tell, appears to be intact. You've got some joints there that are so subtle. I give them the possibility of being open to the ground. There's just not enough to confirm that is indeed what's going on here, in my opinion. So, like I was saying before, I like to see secondary signs of it, stuff that shows me that that the only way that it could have got into that joint is from the ground. Roots, earthworms, dirt clods sticking out of the pipe joint, obvious stuff. So it's one of those ones that you'd have to rescope in time to see if you can see any changes or anything like that. Ideally, you do that kind of stuff at a different time of year, well into the winter time. We've had lots of rain saturation. That's about the only way you're going to be able to catch that on camera as to whether or not those joints are compromised at all. You can put joints together in kind of a wonky fashion, have them be completely sealed up and not problematic at all. And just visually, there's a blemish there, but nothing meaningful out of it. Anyhow, as it relates to flow, we have adequate flow of the main lateral. Lines are functioning at this time.